Welcome back, everybody. And today I thought it would be a good day, and perhaps my only day this week, to give you a magical garden update and tour. I'd like to talk a little bit today also about learning how to connect with your garden, with each individual plants, and what they can tell you just by using your intuition, your inner spiritual guidance. For example, this is my new friend Herod, and Herod is a peace lily, and he unfortunately for 2 years was abandoned in a basement by a window with a grow light, with no interaction with people and no people interacting with him. And I recently was able to finish, or mostly finish, setting up my apothecary where I'm standing now. And I knew I had the perfect home for Herod. And Herod is, by just getting close to him and not just being able to touch his leaves, but to have him in my space where I work a great deal. I spend a lot of time in my apothecary here. He's literally, the second I brought him in and got him set up on this beautiful little pedestal that I had, immediately the energy coming off of him was absolute joy. He's very happy to be here. He's now being spoken with, touched, interacted with. He's in my apothecary. The energy is very, very good because I do a lot of creating in here. Obviously, I do a lot of curative things, and of course, my altar is here as well. And he is a part of the altar area now, and so his energy has changed. He is growing incredibly fast. Just within a 2-day period, the color on his leaves have deepened. They are glossy looking now, as you can see. And I mean, he's already starting to just kind of stretch out his legs, and make himself at home. And it's been wonderful how I myself have learned how to identify problems within plants and their thoughts and feelings, basically. I mean, if you want to just kind of be basic with it, but their energies will tell you many, many things about how they're feeling, if they're lacking anything. And all plants, whether it's to provide food or curative measures or to just be beautiful, they have an energy, they have needs and wants, and they want to be a part of everything around them, just like we should want to be a part of everything around us. So this is kind of what I'm getting at in today's video, is that you can do a lot of research about plants, about gardening, and I continue to do so, because herbalism and green witchcraft is about working with nature together on an even playing field. And that means understanding what nature's telling you. And with the case of Herod here, he was saying, I'm lonely. I need people. I need, activity around me. I need someone to be near me. And now he's incredibly happy. And you can feel the energy. So today's video is more about, what is nature telling you? What is nature telling you that it wants from you as not only a magical practitioner, but as a spiritual being? What does it want from you? What do you want from it? So we're going to go on a little tour and we'll chat as we go. Okay, now we're on my back deck where I do have some interesting plants working here. As you remember, we planted the ranunculus together, and we've got 3 of those. Now this one has grown the slowest, but it has finally gotten its bearing and it is starting to take off. These little spikies in here, they're skewers. I have several outdoor cats that have adopted me, and they'd like to nap in my planter bowls. So to prevent that, I just put some skewers in there, and now they don't sleep in there. But as you can see, the ranunculus has taken on quite nicely. I haven't checked to see how long I've got to wait for actual blooms, but eventually they will get here, and I am perfectly fine being patient. The third one is right here, and he's looking very pretty too. And as you can tell, they're very healthy. Now these we started from seeds together. These are the wildflower mix, and you can tell they're very deep and green and very healthy. So they're a very happy plant. That's Mama Cat. She's telling me she wants kitty temptations, I believe. These are zinnias. This just started blooming. I'm pretty excited about it. And again, very healthy and happy. And this last year became a volunteer yarrow plant. Originally I had jalapenos growing in this last year, and the yarrow magically reseeded itself over here. It was never planted here. So I decided that, well, if it decided to make its presence known, then it deserves to stay. It's very medicinal. It's good for many different things. It's a calmative. It can help with minor colds and flus, but I use it a lot for anxiety and stress. It makes a wonderful tea. So we've looked at those, and we're about to go down there. And if you're wondering about this kind of defunct seed flat, this is a seed flat that I'm still debating on whether or not I'm going to restart it, because I do have probably about 7 or 8 varieties of plants that didn't make it, and so it's like May 5th. So I'm debating, should I or shouldn't I? So this was the tray that didn't make it, and now I'm deciding on if I want to move on with that or not. So let's move on down to the raised bed garden and the buckets that you haven't seen, and the in-ground garden. Well, I'm now down by the raised bed garden, and this is the rose bush I planted for my mother, and as you can see, it has exploded in blooms, and we've actually started training it into the wire around the raised bed garden as a happy plant. Basically, I just leave her alone, and it's a variety of rose called a knockout rose, and really set it and forget it for those that aren't more spiritually inclined. But for myself, I enjoy just visiting with this flower. She's just exploded everywhere. You can see buds just everywhere. So scientifically, really you don't have to do much with this plant except be sure that it's watered. Everything I've read, you really don't even need to, you don't have to deadhead it, you don't have to do all the things that you would normally do with a rose bush. But magically speaking, you can tell the vibrancy and the health of this plant. And this plant, speaks just peace and harmony. Perfectly content. Now inside here, we have some wonderful volunteers from last year. Let's take a look here. I have planted, as you can see, we have a very good crop of weeds starting. But if you can see right there, that is a Cosmo from last year that has reseeded. I deliberately did seed. I just sort of tossed seeds in from the last Cosmo plant that I grew from seed. And I wanted to see what would happen. We got Cosmos. So I do have, you can't see it probably, but we have some sage, and in here we also have some rosemary right there. And we have, this is what is called a weed, but it's actually a variety of daisy that has volunteered in here. And then we have the general himself, the mullein plant, which I have harvested. I actually harvested about 1/3 of the plant and got 2 very well packed quart jars of dried mullein leaf. As you can see, very healthy, very happy. Over here is our yarrow. Now this is the large version from what I just showed you upstairs. But this year I thought it was very interesting because the flowers are no longer white. Now they're coming in pink, which I thought is absolutely beautiful. And again, yarrow, very, very healthy for you. Makes a wonderful tea. It's just a fantastic plant all the way. And it's also very good for poultices as well. And again, you can tell the energy with these plants are very peaceful, very happy. I'm going to show you an example of a plant here and there that aren't doing as well, and we'll discuss those. These are my echinacea plants. Now, the one to the right here was one that we actually bought from a nursery 3 years ago, and it comes back year to year. I really just cut it down when it dies back, and as you can tell, it's quite happy. We also have over here some more echinacea and a calendula. It's starting to do its thing. Well, hello, Grumpy. How are you? Say hello to everybody. This is one of the fellows that adopted us. Haven't you, good sir? Mm-hmm. Yes. He's my garden helper. There's a few of them. They came from the neighbors, and the neighbors decided to put them out and pretend they didn't know them anymore. So they came to me, and we kind of take care of them. We keep them safe and healthy and keep them from creating more, as it were. Exactly. He still has thoughts about that. Now over here is Parsley. Oop, don't fall in, Grumpy. He just fell into the bee balm. The Parsley's doing well, but it was struggling at first. And it was struggling at first, you can tell that it's still a very healthy plant, but the energy, forgive the bumps in the camera. Grumpy has decided he's going to be petted no matter what. Dude. You can also tell the health of your garden by how animals interact in your garden. If they're very comfortable and they want to spend time in your garden, it's not because they want to eat it, it's because they're happy there. The energy's good. The energy's healthy and nurturing. But as I was saying about the parsley, it had a few moments where the edges of the leaves turned brown and then they turned white. But as you can still see, if you look closely, a little bit of cat. Yeah. Oh, careful. Dude, you're just falling into everything today. As you can see through the cat, that it still has some edges on the leaves that are still a little brown and a little curled, but it is bouncing back. So the energy of it is healing, but healthy. Now over here, that's why I call him Grumpy. He has attitude sometimes. The bee balm I planted from seed last year, and it got really big. It grew way up past the top of the edges of the raised bed garden. And I let it die back just like I did the echinacea, trimmed it, and here we are. It's coming back bigger and badder than ever. Again, very healthy, good energy. This is excellent in herbalism, as well as being a wonderful pollinator. Over here is some thyme that I had planted last year that I thought had died off. Thank you, Grumpy. And it actually came back full force, and I'm letting this one go to flower. I have another one for medicinal purposes, and this one's still quite good to use, even though it has flowers on it. But I'm not concerned about it. I will be harvesting that soon, though, to dry for medicinal purposes. And this is my Sweet William, which I also have out over there. That's that guy right there. And this has really taken off. It never really did much last year, but you can tell with my change in energy and connecting more with nature and making it my sole purpose to work within nature, the difference between that plant being 3 inches tall and now 2 feet tall. So you can definitely see the health and well-being in that. And over here, of course, we have more nature's bouquet of weeds. But just keep in mind, weeds are just a word for people who don't know what that plant is. Pretty much in nature, you're going to find a plant that has a purpose. We just call it a weed because we don't know what else to call it or to use it for. Now I do have, I don't know how well you can see it, but we do have larkspur planted, and it is actually taking off pretty well. Please don't do that. I know, you want your kibble. I told you he was grumpy. So let's go take a look at the rest of the medicinal garden. Now this is a new addition, and this is strictly medicinal. I do have some more plants that need to go to this. Oh wow. I'm going to start right off here because look at the borage. Look at that. Isn't that incredible? Look at those flowers. Remember when we did my seed haul and I talked about the flowers on the borage plant? Here you go. In real life. Borage is a fantastic herb. And this is the odd man out. Well, not the only odd man out, but I accidentally planted pepperoncini. So he's staying right here, but doing very well. We do have quite a few flowers for pollinators. Like we have stock, and we have a bunch of straw flowers in here that everybody's doing really well. Now here's a good example of a plant that is struggling, and that is my holy basil. It has struggled from the start. And I believe from what I have sensed is that it got a little stressed out in its early stages, and it has struggled to rebound ever since. So what I would do for this to give it a leg up is I tend to use the Revivex from M.I. Gardner, but I will also do some energy work to encourage that, to assist this plant to grow a little bit stronger, a little bit better. So because this plant is basically saying, I'm weakened and I don't have enough strength to be my best optimal that I can be. So I'm going to give it extra nutrients, and I'm going to send energy into it and give it that extra boost that it needs. And we'll see if it bounces back a little bit better. Over here, again, is what I was talking about with straw flowers. I think these are the straw flowers. I'm being molested by my jack-o'-lantern plant. It's attacking my leg. Okay, so yeah, we've got very healthy plants here. We've got some more flowers, zinnias. This is lemon mint at the back here, and it's doing fine. It's small, but it also got planted much later. So what it is saying is that it's going to take a little while to get its bearings because it was planted later and it sat a little long in a too small pot. So it's basically the growth was stunted just a bit, but as you can tell, it's still very healthy and happy, and those stems are very sturdy and strong. So it's just in catch-up mode. So it's healthy, but it's little. Over here are some shallots, and they're perfectly healthy and fine. Over here are some of the stock flowers I mentioned, and they're getting ready to bloom. And of course over here we've got the chamomile, which I think was the first bloomer I had, and I need to harvest quite a bunch of it so it'll get all nice and bushy. Some more flowers back there. I think those are stock flowers. And then here's the second time plant that I've started. Healthy again, good energy. And I have a cat right here at my feet. Say hi to everybody. He's like, no, I don't want to talk now. Okay, well, let's, I guess, come around the back side. Okay. You're a pale grumpy. He's like, that's my name. Okay, so over here, I do have, this was the other unintentional. This is summer squash. I accidentally put it in a pot. I was very tired that day, and so we got a little confused putting things in pots. Over here, though, is hyssop, which is another wonderful medicinal herb, and it has started to bloom. It's very healthy and happy. It's quite the difference from when I tried to do this last year without using any spiritual guidance from nature. And yes, I work with fairies. I was purely going by the science aspect. And my hyssop was about that big, and it never got beyond that. And then it died. These, I took an entirely different approach using my connection to nature and through the fae, and look at the results. So, herbalism is, and green witchcraft, really, it's science and it's spirituality. And I think that's what we always need to remind ourselves, is that, yeah, you need your basics, you need to do your homework, but you need to remember at the end of the day that you also need to make it about spirit. And the cat is right behind me. I don't dare back up. Grumpy. You're in the way. Yeah, he doesn't care. Come in. Boop. At least I can move now. Okay. So over here we have Italian basil, which is also a medicinal herb. It's actually, I think it's good for respiratory. I'll have to double check that. Some of these I'm a little bit new at. I'm trying to remember a bunch of different and new things. So my point being, it's also not only good in the kitchen, but it's good for you. Over here, I do have a couple of sunflowers. I missed that guy back there. So I have an autumn dwarf, which is this one right here, and that is an autumn beauty sunflower. So I may have to rotate some pots depending on how much shade these two may potentially cause. I don't know. And then I have the dreaded mint plant that is so good for you, both holistically and spiritually. But everyone, please, if you take away anything, put your mint in a pot, contain it, or else it will take over your life. And then we have this over here, and I believe this is mugwort. No, excuse me, valerian, another fantastic one that is great for anxiety, for sleep issues. And it's doing well. We do have some bug damage here, but nothing minor, nothing that's going to hurt the plant. You can always tell them you're going to have an issue when you see leaves like this, but the plant is still green and lush. It's the balance, because you're going to know that from year to year in the garden, there will be a balance where you'll notice one plant is going to get maybe attacked by insects, and then the rest of your garden is left alone. That's nature's way of very gently and lovingly taking its pound of flesh. There's a balance. Now this is the Thai basil. Looking beautiful. Oh, here's our second friend. This is Grumpy's little girl. Her name's a little bit. They tend to travel together, eat together. They eat out of the same bowl. They're so precious. Hello, sweetheart. Yeah. Now this is mugwort. Let me get turned red, but I'm pretty sure. No, this is mugwort. Yeah. And that is doing phenomenally well. Absolutely. And this is another mint, and I can't remember which one it is. Wait. I know. Oh, no, this is just a regular straight up mint. I forgot. I got actually 2 little guys from the store, and it was mint and it was rosemary. And so I planted them out, and they are doing fantastic. And here is this little darling, the queen herself, jack-o'-lantern. And very interesting story about her. She was doomed to die. She had 2 main stems, and they both were accidentally broken, and as a result, doomed to die, because one was broken completely off and the other one was pinched completely through. And I kept being told by spirit to just keep her watered, keep her, take care of her, keep her in the shade for a day or two, take her out in the sun for a day or two, keep her watered. And I did. And she kind of wrinkled up, and then she got green again. And then she kind of wrinkled up and turned yellow, and then she got green again. And then I got the word. Spirit said, put her in a pot. I'm like, okay. I did. And this is what happened. She took off. So, once again, listening to spirituality, listening to nature tell you, despite what your brain is saying, listen to nature. Nature's saying, nope, this plant will make it. Do this, and this plant will make it. And she did. All right, so let's take a short break, and then I'll show you around the in-ground garden. All right, we're at the in-ground garden now. And as you can see, sorry about that. As you can see, I definitely need to get my weed barrier down. Yes, I use weed barrier just to make it so that I can actually find the plants that I have planted. Because I tried last year not to do that, and I had a jungle. It was not even controlled chaos. So yes, I will be putting down a weed barrier just in the walkways so that I can at least get through to see all of my plants. Now, to start with, we have a lovely dandelion taking hold over my poor green beans. who thinks she's being very, very funny. I'm not pulling her up because I'm pretty sure that the roots are intertwined with the green beans. I have several green beans planted here. These are contender. I'm pretty sure I have that backwards. I have Kentucky pole beans, and I believe these are the contender beans. And they could use some nutrients. They're very healthy, but they're a pale green, so they need a little nitrogen. These guys right here also tend to take a little bit more of a beating. Ooh, I see my first green bean. They take a little bit more of a beating because we live on a hill and there's a little bit of a slope here. So when it rains, they get kind of a little too much water, as it were. But all in all, they're very healthy. And as I said, over here, looky, looky, we got our first green bean. So that's a good sign of a plant. Actually, it has a tiny little friend next to it. So, and over here, we had a slow start. Oh, Grumpy's back. Hi. Hi there. We had a slow start with the acorn squash, but it has rebounded, and the leaves are looking very healthy. Are you helping? Thank you. I put food out for you. Yeah. Well, look out, Bubba. Okay. Over here, I have the world's most stubborn carrot, I believe. It's a carrot or a parsnip, but I originally thought that it was a weed. And when I was getting the ground prepped to start the garden, it turned out it was something that I had planted that had migrated. I dug it up and it came back. So I figure it needs to be here. Now over here, make sure I don't have a kitty cat under my feet. Over here, we've got all of our squashes that, as you can tell, are already starting to flower and spread and do their magical goodness. We have a couple of French squash and the neighbor's chickens back there. I don't know if you can see them. They're a little far away, but darn it, they're not my chickens, unfortunately. But anywho, we've got our French squash that's supposed to be, I can't pronounce it. It's a French name, but it is like a demarqué or something like that, but it's supposed to be really, really tasty. And then over here I have sweetmeat and Long Island cheese. Pumpkins, those, everyone you can tell everything's very healthy and raring to go. And over here, if you watched my previous videos, here are their bean poles. The second one over here actually did not survive, but over here it did, and if you can tell, it is actually growing nicely up the poles. It is now also reaching out to the strings and then the poles right there. And then over here we've got our San Marzanos, and these guys are just healthy. They're just very happy, healthy plants. Now down here is my slower growing sweet peppers, and these are the giant green emerald and I believe a yellow, golden yellow. And they're growing a little bit slower, but peppers tend to, at least in my experience, they don't take off like a tomato plant will. They get big, but it takes them a little bit of time. And they do, as you can see from the leaves, they need a little bit of TLC. Overall, they're doing good. You see some leaf curling there. But they're basically saying, hey, we could use a boost in nutrients. We're healthy, but, you know, we could always use a little extra vitamins in our diet. Volunteer carrot. And over here in our next row is more of the sweet peppers. I think it's pretty much the same varieties, and as you can tell, they're the same thing. Little bit of leaf curling. They're healthy. Not a lot of bug or weed push yet, but they definitely need some vitamins. You can tell by looking at them, they're saying, hey, you know, give me a little boost. Now down here, if you can tell the difference, this one compared to these. Now these also too, we're having a sun issue because we're going to have to get our trees worked on here this weekend. We're going to be taking down a few limbs in order to open up the sunlight for these guys, which is also part of the problem with these guys. They're not getting quite as much light as they should. But from here back, we're getting more sunlight, which is why everybody's a lot larger. So this is a giant emerald green sweet pepper. And over here, I need to get poles in the ground for these two guys. This one took a damage, but as you can tell, she's bouncing back. She's looking good. So maybe a little extra nutrients for that one too might not be a bad idea. But you can tell she's very healthy. So we need a couple of stakes in the ground because they're starting to vine here and looking for things to hang on to. Now moving on here, and these are just pickling cucumbers, I think I forgot to mention. And over here we're seeing a little bit of insect push, but this is a broccoli plant. This is my first year experiment, and we're going to see how that goes. But so far the plant is very healthy, but this is to be expected right here. And remember we talked about earlier in the video about kind of like that sacrificial lamb to create balance in your garden. I discovered this last year when I had collards from the previous year come back up. And so I kept them and harvested them. And then I noticed that they started getting just attacked by insects. And at first it was like, okay, how do I want to deal with this? And then I started noticing the rest of the garden was being left alone. And it was nature's message. It was the spirits of nature, the fae, all of the elementals saying, you give us this plant, the rest will be fine. And it was true. The collards continued to live even though they were decimated by insects, but every other plant that I had planted, no insects. So that's kind of what I meant when I was talking about a balance in nature. By working with nature, nature will be more than happy to work with you. And here's another experiment. It's a Savoy cabbage. I planted one of each because I'm trying to learn the best way and time to plant for where I live. You can go by, you live in zone, 7A or whatever. But really, you need to look at what nature's telling you, when and where to plant for you. And again, do your homework, do your research, but also talk with nature. Nature will tell you if it's right or not. And if you don't pay attention, she'll teach you. So that's our Savoy cabbage. And over here is all of our zucchinis. We happen to love zucchini in this house. So I'm growing quite a few of those. And yes, they are taking off beautifully. And they're very healthy. Over here is a cosmos that I planted last year that grew, but it never did much. And it overwintered. And I just left it alone. And now this year it took off, as you can see. It's got flowers all over. And she's big. It's a beautiful, beautiful, healthy plant. Very happy. Here's my little hanging light above it. Now here's a fun one. I don't know if you can see it, but you see that little pop of green right there? Yeah. I have volunteer lettuce popping up all over the place. They're everywhere. I think there's like 6 or 7 of them. And it's from 2 lettuces that I planted last year that I learned. I planted them way late in the season. I was extremely behind, and of course they never made it. It was just too hot and they bolted, and that was the end of that. But what I learned was they had reseeded themselves at some point, and this year they just started popping up everywhere. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just pop them out of the ground with a shovel and plant them back in the garden. And what it taught me was, again, what I was just talking about earlier, is nature teaching you when you need to plant in your space at that time. You can be in zone A, zone C, whatever. Do your homework, but also remember that your space you're planting in can be very different from 5 miles down the road. So learn what's happening with nature within your space, where you're at right now. Over here is another volunteer collards that may be offered up to the sprites this year. And these areas have not been prepped for anything yet because I've been waiting to deal with the trees. Because as you can see, lots and lots of shade. Now for things like leafy greens and things like that, that's not a bad thing. But no, I have about 2 dozen plants that actually still need to go in the ground. And so I will be, we're only taking down like 6 limbs total across 2 giant trees up here. So not much work on the trees to do to actually make it so that we get ample light in this area for the rest of the plants. So this is kind of wild at the moment. And over here we have some wild dandelions, and over here we've got another herb that's volunteered and growing. I will actually have to do some research to figure out what this is, but I want to say I know this plant, and all of a sudden I can't think of what it's called. Forgive me. Oh, yes, Grumpy, thank you for the reminder. I want to say that it's sweet alyssum, that the clusters of the flowers look like sweet alyssum. So we will find out. He's trying to attack my foot. All right, Grumpy. And over here, finally, is some more of the Sweet William that I was talking about over there. I planted it in 2 places, and like last year, it didn't really go anywhere, but this year it definitely is. And I said this is Sweet Alyssum. It's just alyssum is what I think it is. This is Sweet William. So this is the official update of the garden, and I hope that sharing how I work with spirit a little bit better helps you to understand that, you know, there's 2 factors of success when gardening or doing herbs or learning about herbs or flowers or whatever the case may be. It is both scientific and spiritual. Yes, you need to do your homework, but yes, you need to learn to trust what nature is telling you, what nature is teaching you. So I hope this has helped everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day, and blessings to you and yours. I love you all. Take care, and I'll see you next time.